Hey Reddit, not sure why I am writing this, but my therapist says getting it out might help. Fair warning. This gets pretty dark, so buckle up. My name is Alex, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I am a paramedic in a mid-sized city, been doing it for 8 years. Every day I see the worst humanity has to offer: overdoses, car wrecks, domestic violence calls that make your stomach turn. But I love the job. There's something about being the person who shows up when everything's gone to hell, you know. When someone's world is ending, I am the guy trying to put it back together. The irony isn't lost on me now. Alice was my anchor. We'd been married 4 years, together for 6. She was everything I wasn't. Calm where I was intense. Soft where the job had made me hard. She worked as a librarian, spent her days surrounded by quiet books and whispered conversations. When I'd come home after a brutal shift, covered in other people's blood and trauma, she'd wrap me in her arms and somehow wash it all away. Everyone always said we were perfect together. You two are so lucky to have found each other, they'd say at barbecues and dinner parties. Alice would smile that gentle smile of hers and squeeze my hand. I'd look at her and think, yeah, I really am the luckiest bastard alive. God, I was such an idiot. The signs were all there, looking back. Classic cheater behavior that I was too blind, or maybe too trusting, to see. It started small, maybe 6 months ago. She began taking more care with her appearance, spending longer getting ready in the mornings. New lingerie appeared in her drawer, lacy things I'd never seen her wear. When I complimented her on a new perfume, she'd get flustered, change the subject. Just trying something different, she'd say, avoiding eye contact. Her phone became her shadow. Always face down on the table, always on silent. She'd take it with her to the bathroom, to the kitchen to make coffee. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd snatch it up like it was about to explode, fingers flying across the screen before turning it face down again. Work stuff, she'd explain when I raised an eyebrow. New library system is causing all sorts of drama. The evening walks started around the same time. Alice had never been much for exercise, but suddenly she needed fresh air every night after dinner. Sometimes she'd be gone for hours, coming back flushed and breathless, claiming she'd gotten carried away exploring new neighborhoods. I should have known then. Should have trusted the instincts that kept me alive on ambulance calls. But this was Alice, my Alice. The woman who left little notes in my lunch bag, who stayed up waiting for me after the worst shifts, who cried when she stepped on ants by accident. The idea that she could deceive me seemed as impossible as the sun rising in the west. Besides, I was exhausted. Working 12-hour shifts, sometimes pulling doubles when we were short-staffed. The job takes everything you have and then asks for more. By the time I dragged myself home, I barely had energy to eat dinner, let alone interrogate my wife about her sudden interest in fitness. So I made excuses, rationalized, told myself she was just going through a phase, maybe feeling restless. Hell, maybe she was planning something special for our anniversary. I was so desperate to believe in the fairy tale that I ignored every red flag waving in my face. The cruel joke? While I was out there saving other people's marriages, talking suicide jumpers off bridges, keeping domestic violence victims breathing long enough to get to safety, my own was rotting from the inside out. But I am getting ahead of myself. The real gut punch was still coming, so let me tell you about Jake. Jake fucking Morrison, 6'2", built like a brick shithouse, the kind of guy who could carry 2 people down a ladder without breaking a sweat. He'd been with the fire department for 10 years, had commendations out the ass, and everyone loved him. Including me. We'd been working together for 3 years. In emergency services, you get close to your team fast, you have to. When you're running into burning buildings or pulling mangled bodies from car wrecks, you need to trust the person next to you completely. Jake was that person for me. We had a rhythm, you know? I.D. be working on a patient. He.D. be clearing debris or handling crowd control. Perfect teamwork. He was also funny as hell. Dark humor. The kind you need in this job to keep from going insane. After brutal calls, we.D. decompress over coffee, trading stories and jokes that would horrify normal people. He knew about my nightmares, the PTSD episodes I tried to hide from Alice. I knew about his messy divorce 2 years back, how his ex-wife had cleaned him out and moved across the country with their daughter. At least you got a good one, he.D. say, talking about Alice. Hold on to her, man. Women like that are rare. I.D. nod, feeling grateful. Yeah, I was lucky. Had the perfect wife while my buddy was still picking up the pieces of his shattered life. Sometimes I.D. invite him over for dinner, thinking Alice's gentle presence might help heal whatever was broken in him. She was always gracious, making his favorite foods, asking about his daughter, being the kind of woman who made everyone feel welcome. Apparently, she made him feel a little too welcome. The night everything changed started like any other. We got called to an apartment complex fire around 10 p.m. Third floor, elderly woman trapped in her bedroom. Jake and his crew went in while I prepped for potential smoke inhalation cases. Standard procedure. We.D. done it 100 times. The woman was in bad shape when they brought her out. Second-degree burns. Severe smoke damage to her lungs. I worked on her in the back of the bus while Jake rode shotgun to the hospital. Both of us focused, professional. She coded twice on the way, but we got her back. By the time we rolled into the she was stable. Good work, Jake said as we watched the trauma team take over. You saved her life. We saved her life, I corrected. That's how it always was with us, a team. He smiled, but something felt off. He kept checking his phone, seeming distracted. When I asked if everything was okay, he just shrugged. Yeah, just tired. Long day. We were walking back to the ambulance when my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam. We get a lot of weird messages in this job. People who somehow get hold of our personal numbers. But this message made my blood freeze. Your partner does more than save lives with you. Check the attachment. My hand shook as I opened the image. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. It was like looking at a puzzle with half the pieces missing. A photo, clearly taken from outside a window. Two figures on a couch, half dressed, tangled together. One of them had long blonde hair like Alice's. The other was built like a linebacker. Like Jake, the couch looked familiar. The lamp in the background, the throw pillows Alice had bought last Christmas. It was our living room. Our fucking living room. I must have made some kind of noise because Jake looked over. Everything okay, Alex? I stared at him. This man I.D. trusted with my life, who I.D. considered one of my closest friends. His face showed concern, but now I wondered, was it real, or was he just that good at acting? Fine, I managed. Just family stuff. The ride back to the station was torture. Jake kept making small talk, completely oblivious to the bomb that had just gone off in my head. Or maybe he wasn't oblivious. Maybe he was testing me, seeing if I knew. Every word felt like glass in my throat. When he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Great job tonight, partner," I wanted to vomit. I went home that night planning to confront Alice immediately. Burst through the door, throw the phone in her face, demand explanations. But when I got there, she was asleep in bed, looking so peaceful and innocent that I almost convinced myself the photo was fake. Some sick joke, or a case of mistaken identity. Almost. Instead, I sat in my car in the driveway for 2 hours, staring at that picture until my eyes burned. Zooming in on details, looking for proof it wasn't real. But everything matched. The scar on Alice's shoulder from when she fell off her bike as a kid. The tattoo on Jake's forearm. A cross with his daughter's name underneath. By morning, I knew. My wife was fucking my partner. The two people I trusted most in the world had been betraying me, and I'd been too blind to see it. The worst part? I had to go to work the next day and pretend everything was normal. Smile at Jake. Work alongside him. Act like my entire world hadn't just collapsed. But I am a paramedic. I am good at dealing with trauma. I just never thought I'd have to use those skills on myself. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I became a method actor playing the role of Alex who doesn't know his wife is cheating. I got good at it. Scary good. Every morning, I'd kiss Alice goodbye like nothing had changed. Have a good day at the library, honey. Every shift, I'd joke around with Jake like he wasn't stabbing me in the back. Hey, want to grab lunch after this call? But inside, I was dying. You know that feeling when you reworking a trauma and you can see the patient's life slipping away, but you keep pushing meds and doing compressions because giving up isn't an option. That's what those weeks felt like. Going through the motions while everything inside me flatlined. I started documenting everything. Every time Alice left for her walks. Every time Jake seemed distracted at work. Every lie. Every excuse. Every moment that suddenly made sense in this new, horrible context. I kept a notebook hidden in my locker, writing down times, dates, behaviors. My therapist says it was my way of trying to regain control, but honestly, I think I was just trying to prove to myself that I wasn't going insane. The worst part was how fucking normal they both acted. Alice would cuddle with me on the couch, talking about her day, asking about mine. She'd make my favorite dinner and smile when I complimented her cooking. Jake would buy me coffee and ask about Alice. Actually ask about my wife like he gave a shit about our marriage. How's Alice doing? You guys still planning that vacation to Colorado? I wanted to grab him by the throat and scream, "You tell me, you piece of shit. You've been inside my house more than I have." Instead, I'd say, "Yeah, she's excited about it," and hate myself for being such a coward. But I wasn't being a coward. I was being smart, because while they thought they were so clever, I was building a case. See, Alice had gotten sloppy. The evening walks became more frequent, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Her phone was permanently glued to her hand. She started working late at the library, even though I knew their hours and they closed at 6 p.m. And Jake started volunteering for overtime shifts that coincidentally lined up with Alice's mysterious absences. When I mention working late myself, he'd suddenly have family obligations or training he couldn't miss. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I pulled a double shift and was supposed to work until 8 a.m., but we got slow around 6, so I headed home early. I was exhausted, looking forward to crawling into bed next to my wife. I pulled into our driveway and saw Jake's truck parked 2 blocks away. His distinctive red Ford F-150 with the dent in the passenger door from when he backed into a hydrant last year. My heart stopped. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands shaking, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to kick down the front door and catch them in the act. Part of me wanted to drive away and pretend I'd never seen anything. But the paramedic in me, the part that's trained to assess situations and make critical decisions under pressure, took over. I got out of my car and walked around to the back of our house. The bedroom window was cracked open. Alice always liked fresh air when she slept. I could hear voices inside, low and intimate. Her laugh, the one she used to save just for me. Then Jake's voice, saying something that made her giggle. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Audio only. I am not a monster, and I didn't need to see what they were doing. The conversation was damning enough. He's so clueless, Alice was saying. Sometimes I wonder if he notice if I moved out completely. Don't say that. Jake's voice. I feel bad enough as it is. Do you really? Alice's tone was playful, teasing. Because you didn't seem to feel bad when you were. Alice, stop. This is complicated enough, is it? Because it feels pretty simple to me. I am tired of pretending to be happy with someone who's never here, who comes home covered in other people's blood and expects me to just deal with it. That hit me like a physical blow. All those nights I'd come home traumatized from brutal calls, and she'd comforted me, told me she understood. All lies. Your marriage isn't my fault, Jake said. It was already broken when we started fucking, Alice finished. You can say it, Jake. We're adults. This isn't just about sex, and you know it. Then what is it about? Because from where I am sitting, you get to play the hero at work and the hero in my bed, while Alex gets to be the clueless husband who thinks his wife is at book club. I'd heard enough. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I got in my car and drove. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just needed to get away from that house, from those voices, from the sound of my wife talking about me like I was some pathetic stranger she was stuck with. I ended up at a 24-hour diner across town, sitting in a booth with cold coffee, listening to that recording over and over. Each time, it hurt worse. Not just the betrayal, but the casual cruelty of it. The way Alice dismissed our entire marriage like it was some inconvenience she had to endure. I'd spent years coming home to her, thinking I was the luckiest guy alive. Turns out, she'd spent those same years wishing I was someone else. When I finally went home around noon, Alice was in the kitchen making lunch. She smiled when she saw me, asked about my shift. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Here she was, acting like the loving wife, when a few hours earlier she'd been in our bed with another man, mocking me to his face. You look tired, she said, reaching up to touch my cheek. Rough night? I looked at her hand, the same hand that had been touching Jake just hours before, and felt something inside me break completely. Yeah, I said, rough night, but I smiled when I said it, because I'd finally stopped playing the role of the clueless husband. Now I was playing something else entirely. After that morning when I recorded them, something fundamental shifted inside me. The heartbreak was still there, don't get me wrong. But underneath it, something colder had taken root. Call it anger, call it survival instinct, call it whatever you want. I started thinking like a paramedic again. Assess the situation, triage the damage, and execute a plan. First thing I did was talk to a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. My buddy Marcus from high school who built a reputation tearing apart cheating spouses in divorce court. He took one look at me and knew exactly why I was there. How bad is it? He asked. I played him the recording. Watched his face as Alice's voice filled the room, talking about how clueless I was, how tired she was of pretending to be happy. When it ended, Marcus leaned back in his chair and whistled. Alex, this is a gift. Audio evidence of adultery, with her admitting to the affair and disparaging the marriage. In our state, this changes everything. Alimony, acid division. She just fucked herself royally. What do I need to do? Keep gathering evidence, but be smart about it. Don't let on that you know anything yet. How are your finances separated? That's when I realized how Alice had been playing the long game. Over the past year, she'd slowly been moving money around. For savings, she'd said. Better interest rates, small amounts, nothing that seemed suspicious at the time. But it added up. She'd moved almost $30,000 of our joint money into accounts I didn't have access to. She's been planning this for a while, Marcus said. Good thing you found out when you did. The next 2 weeks were like living in a spy movie. I installed security cameras around the house, told Alice they were for protection after a break-in in the neighborhood. She actually seemed supportive of the idea. The irony was beautiful. I started varying my work schedule without telling anyone, coming home at unexpected times. Jake's truck became a regular fixture on our street. Sometimes he'd park closer, getting bolder. Once, I caught footage of him leaving through our back door at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday while Alice waved from the kitchen window wearing nothing but a robe. But the real smoking gun came from Alice herself. She, gotten careless with her phone, leaving it unlocked while she showered. I found months of text messages between her and Jake, and read it. These weren't just affair messages. These were two people planning a future together. Messages about looking at apartments across town. Alice telling Jake about the money she, been moving. How she was setting them up for when this all comes out. Jake talking about taking a transfer to a different station so they wouldn't have to hide anymore. Alice researching divorce lawyers and asking Jake if he thought make things difficult. The kicker? A message from Alice to Jake sent just 3 days after I recorded them. He's been acting weird lately. Think he suspects something? Jake's response. Nah, Alex is too trusting. Guy still thinks we best friends. We just need to be more careful until you ready to pull the trigger. Reading that felt like getting shot. This man I trusted with my life, who I considered family, was actively strategizing against me. But instead of falling apart, I screenshot everything. Every message, every plan, every cruel joke at my expense. Alice, meanwhile, was ramping up her performance. She started being extra affectionate, suggesting date nights, talking about our future together. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Watching her play the loving wife while knowing she was planning her exit strategy. We should renew our vows for our 5th anniversary, she said one night, cuddled up next to me on the couch. What do you think? I looked at her. This woman I loved completely, who was lying to my face while probably still tasting Jake on her lips, and felt nothing but cold calculation. That sounds perfect, I said. Let's start planning. Because Marcus had given me the timeline. In our state, I needed to establish a pattern of adultery over at least 30 days to strengthen the case. I had the evidence, but the longer they kept this up, the more bulletproof my position became. So I played along, helped Alice research venues for a vow renewal I knew would never happen. Smiled at Jake during shifts while he made small talk about his dating life. Let them both think they were so much smarter than good old clueless Alex. But I was documenting everything. Every lie, every secret meeting, every dollar Alice moved. I hired a private investigator, a former cop named Sarah who specialized in infidelity cases. She got photos of Jake and Alice together at hotels, restaurants, even at the apartment they been looking at. Your wife's not very subtle, Sarah told me, showing me pictures of Alice and Jake kissing in the parking lot of a Marriott. She's acting like a woman who thinks she's already won. She has no idea what's coming, does she? I asked. Sarah smiled. They never do. The breaking point came during a department barbecue. These were annual events where all the emergency services got together. Police, fire, EMS, their families. Alice had always loved these parties, charming everyone with her sweet librarian persona. This year was different. This year, I watched my wife and my partner perform the most elaborate charade I ever seen. Alice playing the devoted spouse, bringing me beer and telling embarrassing stories about our early dating days. Jake acting like the loyal friend, slapping me on the back and joking about what a lucky bastard I was. Seriously, Alex, Jake said, loud enough for everyone to hear, you better treat this woman right. Women like Alice are 1 in a million. Alice blushed and squeezed my arm. Oh, stop it, Jake. You embarrassing me. I smiled and raised my beer. To good friends and perfect wives, I said. I am the luckiest man alive. Everyone cheered. Jake and Alice exchanged the briefest glance, so quick that anyone else would have missed it. But I caught it. A moment of shared guilt, maybe even panic. Later that night, as we were driving home, Alice was unusually quiet. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just. Do you ever feel guilty about anything? Like, really guilty? I almost laughed. Why do you ask? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I am a good enough wife. If I make you happy. I reached over and took her hand, the same hand that had been touching Jake for months. Alice, you everything I ever wanted. I can T imagine my life without you. She squeezed my fingers, and I swear I saw tears in her eyes. I love you too, she whispered. And for just a moment, I almost believed her. Almost forgot about Jake's truck in our driveway, about the money she'd stolen, about the apartment they were planning to share. Almost, but then I remembered what she'd said that morning I recorded them. Sometimes I wonder if he'd notice if I moved out completely. So when we got home, I kissed her goodnight and went to my computer. I had some final preparations to make. The next day, I was going to destroy both their worlds. The day I chose to end it all was a Thursday. Alice had texted me that morning saying she was working late at the library for inventory. Jake had called in sick with food poisoning. I'd gotten screenshots of their messages planning to meet at the Marriott downtown at 2 p.m. Perfect. I called in a personal day and spent the morning making final preparations. Printed out every piece of evidence. Photos, text screenshots, bank records showing Alice's financial maneuvering, timestamps from our security cameras. I organized it all into 2 neat stacks, one for Alice, one for Jake. Then I did something that felt symbolic as hell. I took off my wedding ring and put it in an envelope with a note that simply said, "You can give this to Jake as a consolation prize." At 3 p.m., I drove to the Marriott. Sarah, my pie, was already there, getting final photos. She texted me room number 237. I went to the front desk and played my paramedic card. Told them I had an emergency message for the guests in that room. The desk clerk, probably thinking someone had died, gave me a key card without hesitation. I stood outside room 237 for 5 minutes, listening to my heart pound. This was it, the moment that would change everything. Part of me wanted to walk away, to keep living the lie. But then I remembered Alice's voice. He's so clueless. I am tired of pretending to be happy. I opened the door. They were on the bed, Alice on top, both of them naked and so wrapped up in each other that they didn't notice me immediately. I cleared my throat. Room service. The scramble that followed would have been comedy if it weren't destroying my life. Alice screaming, Jake grabbing for sheets, both of them trying to cover themselves while simultaneously trying to explain. "Alex, it's not what it looks like." Alice started. I laughed. Actually laughed. Really? Because it looks like my wife is fucking my partner in a hotel room while I am at home planning our vow renewal. What does it look like to you? Jake found his voice. Man, I am sorry. You sorry? I stepped into the room, pulling out my phone. Jake, buddy, I've been documenting this for weeks. I have photos of you leaving my house, audio of you two planning your future together, text messages where you call me too trusting and strategize about how to fuck me over. Alice's face went white. You been recording us? Alice, you moved 30 grand out of our joint accounts. You been planning this exit for months. Did you really think I was that stupid? The fight that followed was brutal. Alice crying, then screaming, then trying to turn it around on me. You never home. Your job is more important than our marriage. I was lonely, so you fucked my best friend instead of talking to me? Jake tried to play peacemaker. Alex, we never meant for this to happen. It just what? Just accidentally happened for 6 months? You accidentally started planning to move in together? You accidentally helped my wife steal our money? That's when Alice made the mistake that sealed her fate. She stopped crying and her mask finally dropped completely. You know what? I am not sorry. I am tired of pretending to care about your trauma, your nightmares, your fucking hero complex. Jake makes me feel alive. You make me feel like a widow. The room went dead silent. Even Jake looked shocked at her viciousness. I nodded slowly. There she is, the real Alice. Thank you for finally being honest. I pulled out the stacks of evidence and tossed one to each of them. Here's everything I have. Photos, recordings, financial records, witness statements. My lawyer says it's enough to ensure Alice gets nothing in the divorce. Jake, They already sent copies to your captain. Adultery with a colleague's spouse? That's going to look great on your record. Alice started crying again. Real tears this time. Alex, please. We can work this out. ILL ended with Jake. We can go to counseling. Alice, you told him you wondered if I'd notice if you moved out completely. You said you were tired of pretending to be happy with me. Why would I want to work it out with someone who thinks so little of me? Jake stood up, still holding the bedsheet around his waist. What do you want from us? I want you to stay the fuck away from me. Jake, you're going to request a transfer to a different station. If I see you on my calls, if you try to contact me, ILL make sure everyone in our department knows what kind of man you really are. Alice, you have 48 hours to move out of my house. Take only what you brought into the marriage. Everything else stays. You can, just kick me out. Alice screamed. It's my house too. Actually, it's not. The house is in my name only. We never got around to adding you. My lawyer checked. Funny how that works out. I turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Oh, and Alice? I am keeping the ring. You, rewrite. Women like you are one in a million. Thank God. Epilogue 6 months later. The divorce was finalized last month. Alice fought it at first, tried to claim emotional abuse, that I violated her privacy by recording her. But Marcus was right. The evidence was bulletproof. She got nothing except her personal belongings and a massive legal bill. Jake got transferred to a station across town. Word got around anyway. Emergency services is a small community. His reputation is shot. Last I heard, Alice dumped him 2 months after they moved in together. Turns out when you not sneaking around, the thrill dies pretty quick. Me? I am doing better than I expected. Sold the house, bought a condo downtown. Started seeing a therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma. Some days are harder than others, but I am not drowning anymore. I learned something important through all this. You can save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Not on calls, not in marriages. Sometimes the best thing you can do is save yourself. Had a call last week. Multi-car accident. Family trapped in their minivan. As I was working on the father, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "Save my wife first. She's everything to me." I looked at this man, bleeding and broken, thinking only of the woman he loved, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a year. Hope. Real love exists. I seen it in that car. In the way he looked at his wife even while he was dying. Alice never looked at me that way. Not even at the beginning. I am 32 years old. They got time to find someone who will look at me like I am their whole world, not an inconvenience they have to endure. Someone who won, call me clueless behind my back while planning their escape. Someone who deserves the man I am becoming. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe.